All right, this is session 13 of our end time events, and we're going to go into the Gospels. Mark 13, we're going to start covering today, and the the end time events that are described there in Mark 13. Now, on this first slide here, this is our original slide. The events that are talked about are this troddening down of Jerusalem, and this beast government that does this and brings it upon us. And we get that date, that 3/22/2014, is when we think this is going to start. How we arrived at that date was uh, Revelation tells us in two places that the beast government's going to be given power 42 months, and he's going to scatter the power of the holy people and all that. And also it tells us that 42 months Jerusalem will be trodden down of the Gentiles. Well, if you count backward from our arrived at date previously of Feast of Trumpets, September 22nd, 2017, and the sign of his return on that date, you count back 42 months, that takes you back to March 22nd, 2014. So that's when we think this is going to kick off. March 22nd, 2014, you'll see this beast government, this beast power, I suspect headed up by Prince Charles. And maybe it won't be him, but I think it's going to be him if you watch that Antichrist in a cup of tea. And 10 nations that kick in this end time government and trodden America and Israel over there and underfoot. Well, let's take a look at Mark 13. In Mark 13 it says, starting in verse 1, "As he went out of the temple, one of his disciples said unto him, Master, see what manner of stones and buildings are here? And Yahushua answered and said unto him, See you these great buildings? There shall not be left one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. As he sat upon the Mount of Olives over against the temple, Peter, James, and John, and Andrew asked him privately." So they got a little private audience, a little sidebar with him privately. And they say, Tell us, what shall these things be, and what shall be the sign when all these things shall be fulfilled? Well, they have two questions, and that's usually the way these go. So you could be talking about a couple different things here. And keep that in the back of your mind as we go through this. Verse 5, "And Yahushua answered them, began to say, Take heed, lest any man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and shall deceive many. And you shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. Be you not troubled, for such things must needs be, but the end shall not be yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be earthquakes in divers places, and there shall be famines and troubles. These are the beginnings of sorrows. But take heed to yourselves, for they shall deliver you up to councils, and in the synagogues you shall be beaten, and you shall be brought before the rulers and kings for my sake, for a testimony against them. And the gospel must first be published among all nations." Now, I thought this was interesting because this fits in with Revelation 14:6, which says, gives the timing of the end time events here, and says that the gospel is going to be preached to every nation and kindred and tongue. Then Babylon gets destroyed, the United States. So that kicks off these end time events. It's right at the beginning of the tribulation. So Mark seems to say the same thing, this gospel. Well, we see that the gospel has been published now in every nation, every tongue. It's on the internet for free to everybody. If you can't figure out about keeping the commandments and obeying his laws and repenting and then having his shed blood applied to you, then you're just not trying. You're not reading. You're listening to other people or something. If you read the scriptures, it's pretty clear. Now, if you listen to preachers, it's very confusing. If you go to church, any church on Sunday or the Sabbath, it's very confusing. But if you read the Bible, it's pretty straightforward. Going on in 13:11, "But when they shall lead you and deliver you up, take no thought beforehand what you shall speak, and neither do you premeditate. But whatsoever shall be given you in that hour, that speak you, for it is not you that speak, but the Holy Ghost. And now brother shall betray brother unto death, and father the son, and children shall rise up against their parents, and shall cause them to be put to death. And you shall be hated of all men for my name's sake, but he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved." Now this sounds like some really bad times. People have own family members getting other family members put to death and stuff. I mean, this sounds like some very terrible times. Going on in verse 14, but when you shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet standing where it ought not, let him that reads understand, and let them that be in Judea flee into the mountains. And let him that is on the housetop not go down into the house, and neither enter thereinto and take anything out of his house. And let him that is in the field not turn back again to take up his garment. But woe unto them that are with child, and that give suck in those days, and pray you that your flight be not in the winter. For in those days shall be affliction such as was not from the beginning in the creation which God created unto this time, neither shall be. And except that Yahuwah had shortened those days, no flesh should be saved. But for the elect's sake, whom he hath chosen, he hath shortened the days. Man, this is going to be the most terrible time known to man since Noah's flood. That's what he's saying here, since the creation of time. There's been some pretty terrible times in World War II and Stalin and Hitler and all. I can think of some pretty bad times where an awful millions and millions of people died. And he says that this end time is going to be the worst. This is no time like it since creation. So it sounds very terrible. And except that those days should be shortened, there should be no flesh saved alive here. So it sounds like it's going to get really bad with this nuclear bomb war and all the rest of it. I mean, so bad that you're not going to be able to believe it. Well, he goes on here and says, and then if any man shall say to you, lo, here's the Christ, or lo, there he is, believe him not. The false Christ and false prophets shall arise, and shall show signs and wonders to seduce, if it were possible, even the elect. But take you heed, behold, I have foretold you all things. But in those days and that tribulation, after that tribulation, the sun shall be darkened. So he's talking about now after the 3-year period. Well, before we get into that, the prior part mentioned about this abomination spoken of by Daniel the prophet. And we covered in Daniel 8 that's talking about the destruction of the holy people over here in the United States for 1150 days. It's going to be destroyed. Also, you'll notice that in Daniel 12 it talks about a similar thing. And we'll jump forward to the next screen and then we'll jump back. But in Daniel 12:1 it says there should be a time of trouble such as never was since there was a nation, even to the same time, and at that time people shall be delivered, every one that is found written in the book. And jumping down to verse 4, he says, many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. And in verse 6 of Daniel 12, it says, how long shall it be to the end of these wonders, he asks him. And he says in verse 7, ever that the time shall be for times, times, and a half a time, and when he shall have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people, all these things shall be finished. Well, the power of we covered this in Daniel 8 and 9 as well. It talks about the mighty people. He's going to scatter the power of the mighty people. And similar verbiage here. He's talking about America, us Latter-day Israelites. And we're supposed to be the holy people, the set-aside people. And our power is all going to get scattered, and it's not going to be good. And, of course, the United States will be destroyed under nuclear bomb fire, and Jerusalem will be trampled underfoot as well. The Israelite nations, it's going to be a bad time, this 3.5-year time. Never any time like it. And he says when this will all be finished for the time, times, and half time, for that 3.5-year period, 42 months, then will all these things be finished. So that's what he's talking about. He's talking about he's describing what's going to occur between the spring of 2014 and 2017 in the fall upon his return. Well, in verse 9 he says, for the words are closed up and sealed till the time of the end. Now, no one's been able to parcel these apart up till now and put them together in any sensible way, and that I've seen anyway. And I think that's because the time is not close enough, or because they're wicked and they're not obeying all the laws of God. All the commandments, all the statutes, all the judgments. And he goes on in verse 10, many shall be purified and made white and tried, and the wicked shall do wickedly. None of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand. So if a lot of people you see cannot understand this, well, that's why. Ask them, are you keeping the Sabbath? Are you keeping these holy days? You can check on those things, and if they say no, well, then you know why they don't understand. And he goes on to talk about there. He says, from the time that the continual shall be taken away. There's no word sacrifice there. Yours probably says daily sacrifice. Talking about the continual rebellion over here that we covered earlier in Daniel 9. Shall be taken away, in the abomination, and they have in there that make desolate, but that's implied. Abomination, desolation shall give 1,290 days. So he's talking about the number of days that are going to pass after that. Blessed is he that waits and comes to the 1,305 and 30 days. Go your way till the end. You shall stand your lot at the end of your days. He's talking to Daniel. Well, this is a fascinating passage, this Daniel. So, we'll jump back to Mark 13 in the next session. We're going to have to break this up. Thanks. Hallelujah.